In a time when the world was just discovering the potential of a digital revolution, there was a moment in design history where optimism met the future with an aesthetic so unique it could only belong to the dawn of the new millennium. That time was the early 2000s, and the aesthetic was none other than the captivating Frutiger Aero style. An aesthetic that encapsulates a moment in time and left a lasting impression on many teens, young adults, and the face of the graphics design industry worldwide. As someone who grew up in the era when the Frutiger Aero style was all the rage, its influence was everywhere, yet I was too young to truly understand its impact. It was part of the background of my childhood, in the ads we watched, the products we used, and the digital world we were exploring. The vibrant colours, glossy textures, cloudy skies, tropical fish, water, bubbles, sprawling patterns, and the forward-looking aesthetics were imprinted in my mind. They now represent for me a kind of hazy nostalgia, a glimpse into a time when the world was racing through the digital age with a hopeful enthusiasm. Even to this day, whenever I see a design rooted in the Frutiger Aero style, it brings back waves of nostalgia, good memories, and a sense of a simpler time. So let's start at the beginning when this aesthetic first began to take shape. The early to mid 2000s was a fascinating period in design history. The world had just survived the Y2K bug, and technology was opening new horizons like never before. Wi-Fi was now more widely available, spurring on the use of social media platforms like MySpace, first released in 2003, and then expanding an exponential amount with the release of the first iPhone back in 2007. It was amidst this backdrop of optimism and fascination with the future that the Frutiger Aero style emerged and solidified itself in the public eye. Named after Alluring Frutiger, the renowned Swiss typeface designer, and inspired by his eponymous typeface, the Frutiger Aero style extrapolated his principles of clarity and legibility to a three-dimensional product-focused design aesthetic. Frutiger Aero quickly gained popularity, resonating with a public eager to embrace the dawning digital age. It was fresh, modern, and seemed to encapsulate the technological advance of the era. The Frutiger Aero style was more than just a design trend, it was emblematic of the cultural zeitgeist of the early 2000s. It symbolized a world in transition, a society stepping confidently into the future shaped by technology and digital connectivity. From web design to product packaging, from advertising campaigns to user interfaces, the Frutiger Aero aesthetic became synonymous with progress and futurism, while maintaining a certain warmth and accessibility that made it widely appealing. In many ways, the Frutiger Aero style was the visual language of a new millennium, a representation of a hopeful era etched into our collective memory, and its influence is still felt in hearts of millions like myself to this day. Now that we have an understanding of the historical and cultural backdrop of the Frutiger Aero style, let's examine its inspirations and innovators who helped shape it. The roots of the Frutiger Aero style can be traced back to the principles of modernist design. The clean lines, functional shapes, and the emphasis on simplicity and clarity are echoes of the earlier Bauhaus and Swiss design movements. The Frutiger Aero style took these principles and added a futuristic twist, infusing them with a sense of dynamism and energy reflective of the digital age. Adrian's work on typefaces, most notably the Frutiger font, heavily influenced the design language of the style. His emphasis on legibility and clarity in design principles, even when adapted to the three-dimensional product-focused design of the Aero style, became its defining characteristic. Let's look at some iconic designs from this era. When we think of iconic products from the early 2000s that exemplify the Frutiger Aero style, one of the first that comes to mind is undoubtedly the iPod Classic. Launched in 2001, the iPod Classic was a game changer, not just in terms of technology, but also in terms of design. It was characterized by a minimalistic aesthetic with a polished metallic finish and smooth rounded corners. The iconic click wheel, which was flush with the rest of the device, and sleek unibody design made it a visual delight. But it wasn't just the iPod Classic. In fact, Apple as a whole truly embraced the Frutiger Aero style when it was all the rage. The iMac G4, released in 2002, featured a hemispherical base and a flat panel display mounted to an adjustable arm, creating a sense of lightness and dynamism. The year after, in 2003, Apple released the Mac G5, which sported a sleek aluminium enclosure with purported front and back panels, a nod to the Aero's aesthetic emphasis on sleek metallic finishes. Another amazing thing to come from this era was none other than the Nintendo DS. Released in 2004, it was the perfect embodiment of this principle. Its design wasn't just about looking good, it was also about enhancing the user's experience. The DS's clamshell design, with its rounded corners and clean lines, is a clear nod to the Frutiger Aero aesthetic. The Aero style emphasis on smoothness, rounded shapes, and high-tech simplicity were all present in the DS's design. Its casing, especially in later versions like the DS Lite, often sported a glossy finish or a metallic sheen that were added to its sleek, futuristic look. My personal favourite though was the DSi, with its novelty camera and beautiful selection of colours. I had a light blue version of the DSi, and I was a devastated 10-year-old when I put it down in the airport one day and forgot all about it in the rush of me and my mum trying to find our gate. The Aero influence wasn't just on the outside, however. The dual-screen design, a first for handheld gaming systems, brought in an element of surprise and novelty, much like how the Aero Aesthetic disrupted the conventional design norms. The lower touchscreen display provided a tactile dimension, a sense of interaction that felt novel and futuristic in the early 2000s. So in essence, the Nintendo DS wasn't just a gaming console, it was a tangible piece of the Aero Aesthetic, a testament to how good design can revolutionize technology and user experience. From its rounded clamshell design to the pioneering dual-screen setup, it captured the spirit of the Frutiger Aero style, providing a nostalgic yet forward-thinking glimpse into an iconic era. In line with the Frutiger Aero aesthetic, the Nintendo DS wasn't just about form and function, but also about personal expression. While the design of the DS was iconic, what made it even more special was the level of customization it offered. The DS was launched in multiple colours, each one echoing the vibrant palette often associated with the Aero style. The original DS came in classic colours like titanium and electric blue. However, with the release of the DS Lite, Nintendo expanded colour choices with options like coral pink, ice blue, and enamel navy. These playful hues were in perfect sync with the lively and energetic style we all remember. It showed how a device could be both a practical tool and a canvas for personal expression. In doing so, it encapsulated the heart and soul of Frutiger Aero. But the personalization didn't stop there. The market was flooded with an array of DS cases and skins, allowing users to dress up their devices in a myriad of ways. From popular video game characters and abstract designs to metallic sheens and glittery finishes, these accessories let DS users make a unique and fun style statement. When it comes to the epitome of the early 2000s tech, as well as the DS, few things come close to the Motorola Razr. Released in 2004, this slim, sleek, and stylish flip phone truly was a game changer. Not only did it become a status symbol, it also embodied the Frutiger Aero aesthetic to its core. The Razr's clamshell design was a stroke of genius, a mix of functionality and style that was instantly recognizable. With its metal casing, glossy keys, and a slim profile that lived up to its razor-sharp name, it was an immediate hit. But it wasn't just about looks, the Razr packed a punch in terms of features too. It was one of the first phones to feature a colour screen on the inside and a secondary display on the outside. This external screen, a novel feature back then, displayed essential information like caller ID, time, and battery life without having to flip open the phone. And then there was that satisfying snap when you closed it, an interaction that became synonymous with ending a call. The tactile sensation, the sound, it all contributed to a unique user experience that left a lasting impression. More than just a communication device, the Motorola Razr became a fashion accessory. The phone came in a range of colours, further emphasising its status as a personal, customisable object. It was more than just a device, it was an extension of one's personal style. The influence of the Razr and its impact on phone design cannot be understated. It represented a turning point in consumer technology, where devices were no longer just practical but also a statement of style and individuality. Even today, the Razr stands as a testament to the enduring appeal of the Frutiger Aero aesthetic. But most important of all, who could forget the iPhone? Without a doubt, the iPhone was one of the most defining products of its era, and its influence extended well beyond its release year of 2007. While making a shift towards a more glass-centric design, it still retained elements of a Frutiger Aero style, namely its rounded corners and clean, simple aesthetic. Of course, the iPhone wasn't just about hardware. What truly made it revolutionary was iOS, Apple's mobile operating system. The early versions of iOS embraced the Aero aesthetic with its skeuomorphic design elements, mimicking real-world materials and textures. Take a look at the Notepad app, for example. The lines, the yellow hue, it's reminiscent of an actual paper notepad. Also, the Game Center app, with its green felt texture, took inspiration from traditional casinos and card game tables. The thing most of you guys might remember though, were some of the best games to ever hit a phone screen. The early 2000s saw the rise of mobile gaming, with titles like Angry Birds, Plants vs Zombies, and Doodle Jump becoming household names. Each of these games had their own unique aesthetic, but they all shared the vibrant and playful look that was characteristic of the era. Angry Birds, with its bright colours, simple shapes, and physicality, was a digital manifestation of a cartoonish world. Plants vs Zombies took a quirky concept and brought it to life with its charming and distinctive art style, and Doodle Jump with its hand-drawn graphics seemed to leap right out of the margins of a school notebook. In all of these aspects, the iPhone and its iOS ecosystem encapsulated the optimism and dynamism of the Frutiger Aero style. It was a portal to a world where technology was not just a tool, but a canvas for our imaginations. It wasn't just Apple's devices that adopted Aero's charming style. Apple stores during this period were the epitome of minimalism and functional design, mirroring the sleek aesthetics of their products. The design philosophy was simple. The store was to be as intuitive and inviting as the devices it sold. The stores featured expansive glass facades which not only showcased their products but also created an atmosphere of transparency, literally and metaphorically. Inside, wooden tables held the devices, encouraging customers to touch, use, and experience the products firsthand. The lighting was subtle yet effective, highlighting the products and contributing to the overall clean, high-tech look. The aesthetic was undeniably aero, smooth, futuristic, and focused on user experience. Sony, on the other hand, took a slightly different approach, but the aero influence was still unmistakable. Sony stores also embraced the aero aesthetic with their futuristic, clean lines and polished surfaces. The stores were designed to showcase their products in the best light possible, often incorporating cutting-edge display technology and interactive demonstrations. High-tech elements such as LED screens and touch-sensitive displays were combined with an open layout and ample lighting, creating a space that was both aesthetically pleasing and customer-friendly. These stores weren't just about selling products, they were about creating an experience. From the moment you entered, you were immersed in a world that was distinctly Apple or Sony, a world that was streamlined, futuristic, and unquestionably aero.
Sony always wins, baby. Sony always wins. You can't beat Sony.
In addition to Apple and Sony, Nintendo is another tech giant whose retail spaces reflect the Frutiger Aero aesthetic during the early 2000s and 2010s. Much like their innovative gaming consoles, Nintendo's physical stores were designed to delight and surprise visitors. Nintendo World Store, which opened its doors in 2005 at the heart of New York City, is a classic example. The store was a physical manifestation of Nintendo's philosophy: fun, playful yet sophisticated. Its design followed the aero aesthetic with clean lines, smooth curves, and a modern look. The store's facade was marked by a large glass window that invited passers-by into the world of Nintendo. Inside, the store was divided into various sections, each one dedicated to a different Nintendo franchise. Be it Super Mario, The Legend of Zelda, or Pokemon, each section was designed to immerse visitors into the game's world. This blend of interactivity and storytelling was a nod to the Aero's aesthetic focus on the user's experience. One of the most captivating features of the Nintendo stores was the interactive displays. Sleek gaming stations allowed visitors to try out the latest games often before they were released to the general public. These stations, with their clean lines and high-tech screens, mirrored the aero aesthetic that defined Nintendo consoles. Overall, Nintendo stores were more than just retail outlets. They were immersive experiences designed to transport visitors into the imagined worlds of their favourite games. This, coupled with the aero-influenced design elements, made them iconic symbols of the Frutiger Aero aesthetic in the retail space. In the early to mid-2000s, companies used the aero aesthetic to captivate and engage their youngest audiences, like myself. Advertisements during this era, particularly those targeting children, often use elements of the Frutiger Aero style to create a sense of novelty, excitement, and futuristic appeal. Animated commercials for products like toys, cereals, or video games were awash in vivid colours, smooth gradients, and curvy shapes reminiscent of the Aero style. Animation allowed advertisers to push the boundaries of the Aero aesthetic, creating fantasy worlds that were both visually stunning and highly engaging. For example, consider the advertisements for kids' toys like Tamagotchis, Bionicles, or Nerf guns. These commercials often use bright metallic hues, sleek designs, and animations that radiated the Aero aesthetic. The products themselves, designing the Aero style, were often brought to life through animation, enhancing their appeal and creating a lasting impression on young viewers. And it wasn't just in the realms of toys and games. Even in advertisements for children's cereal or snacks, the Aero style was prominent. Brands like Capri Sun, Fruit by the Foot, and Pop-Tarts used vibrant colours, metallic finishes, and futuristic designs in their advertisements. The products were often portrayed as cool, exciting, and distinctly modern, a direct reflection of the Aero aesthetic. Moving from physical spaces and products, let's shift our focus to the digital landscape of the early 2000s, more specifically to web design. It was during this time that the world would truly start to go online, and the Frutiger Aero aesthetic significantly influenced the look and feel of the websites we visited. Back in the day, websites were less about flat design and more about giving a 3D feel, mirroring the aesthetic of the technology products that were being developed. The Aero style was heavily featured in these designs. We saw extensive use of gradients, reflections, glossy buttons, and rounded corner boxes, creating an effect that was both futuristic and sleek. Take for instance the Apple website from the mid-2000s. It was a perfect example of the Aero aesthetic, with use of gradients in the navigation bar, glossy buttons for calls to action, and reflections under product images. The design was sleek, clean, and definitely ahead of its time. Other popular websites of the era also echoed this style. Social media platforms like MySpace and early versions of Facebook made use of gradient backgrounds, rounded text boxes, and glossy icons. These elements contributed to the user-friendly and visually appealing interfaces that attracted millions of users worldwide. Even online games and multimedia websites weren't left behind. Websites like Neopets and Club Penguin incorporated the Aero aesthetic into their designs. The game's interfaces were filled with vibrant colours, smooth gradients, and 3D effects, bringing a sense of fun and interactivity that was captivating to their young audiences. Overall, the Frutiger Aero style played a significant role in defining the look and feel of the internet during the early to mid-2000s. its influence can still be seen today as designers continue to draw inspiration from this iconic era. As we reach the end of our nostalgic journey through the early 2000s, let's recap some of the key points we've covered in this deep dive into Frutiger Aero's aesthetic. We've explored the birth and rise of the Frutiger Aero style, born from the creative minds of designers who were inspired by the dawn of the new millennium and the technological advancements of the time. We saw how this aesthetic, with its clean lines, futuristic appeal, and glossy finishes, dominated the design world during the early to mid 2000s. From the iconic Motorola Razr and iPod Classic to the revolutionary iPhone, we witnessed how technology embraced the design ethos, giving us products that were as aesthetically pleasing as they were functional. We took a walk down memory lane, revisiting our favourite childhood stores in the mall, including the Apple Store, Sony Store, and even the Nintendo Store. These retail spaces were not just shops, but a physical embodiment of the Aero aesthetic. We also delved into the digital world, exploring how this design style shaped the look and feel of websites. With gradients, reflections, and rounded corner boxes, the Aero style brought a sense of three-dimensionality and sleekness to the internet. As we look back at this iconic era, it's clear that the Frutiger Aero style wasn't just a design trend. It was a representation of the optimism and excitement and the forward-thinking spirit of the time. Despite being 2 decades old, the Aero style still invokes a strong sense of nostalgia. It takes us back to a time when technology was exciting and new, and when each innovation promised to change our lives, and in many ways, these innovations did. But more than that, the beauty of the Frutiger Aero style lies in its ability to marry function with form, to blend technology with art, and to make everyday objects of our lives not just useful, but beautiful. So here's to the Frutiger Aero style, a design aesthetic that marked an era, changed the way we interact with technology, and continues to influence the design world to this day. Thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe for more videos like this in the future.